Hi, my name is Anna, and every week I summarize a book for you. And if you are enjoying these videos, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit the bell button so you get notified next time I upload a video. And please also let me know in the comments if there are any specific books or topics you'd like me to cover. Today I will be discussing the book You Wish Your Parents Had Read by Philippa Perry, which is about giving us that big picture perspective, the understanding that the only thing that truly matters is the quality of the relationship we have with our child, and what we can do to ensure we cultivate that strong connection throughout our parenting journey. This book is an easy read and was written to give a broad view, assuming that readers wouldn't read any other parenting books. I personally prefer more in-depth books, but it is a good book for parents who don't have time to read all the books. The only downside is that whilst the author, who is a psychotherapist, is trying to be quite empathetic throughout the book, I was a bit taken aback by some swooping statements that she makes, like the fact that if you spend too much time on your phone in front of your child, they will grow up feeling this emotional void with drugs and alcohol. What? That being said, there are some great takeaways in this book, so I will skip these funny bits and just focus on the main points that are definitely worth sharing. I have divided this book into 4 parts that I will discuss one by one. The first part is about our parenting legacy. What we learned as kids can have a huge impact on our parenting style as adults. We often get so focused on changing our children's behavior that we often miss the fact that we should also pay close attention to why their behavior is triggering a strong reaction in us. Often what happens is that our children are triggering an old emotion that we felt at a similar age, which completely clouds our judgment in the present moment. And we unknowingly react in anger or by withdrawing from them to protect ourselves from feeling this feeling again. This is actually what our brain does best, triggering the fight or flight response to protect us from what we deem danger. You may not be able to trace a story that makes sense of why you feel this way, but it doesn't mean that there isn't one. And it doesn't necessarily have to be anything major. It could be something you deem ridiculous with your adult lens. Like, for example, for me, one big trigger that used to happen is that I used to have strong anxieties around being late. And I do not mean not liking being late. I mean really strong anxieties where I used to stress everyone around me. It sounds completely ridiculous, but it's still something that I had to acknowledge and work through. So the best thing to do when it comes to parenting is to really take the time to reflect on our own childhood, to examine what happened to us, how we felt about it then, and how we feel about it now. Looking back most likely won't be a pleasant experience, but it is necessary so that we become more self-aware and we can become more mindful parents instead of reacting so much with our children. And when you spend some time thinking about what it may have felt like to be around your child's age, it will allow you to develop more empathy for your child, more empathy for yourself, and sometimes even more empathy for your own parents. I really want to stress this here actually. It's not about pointing fingers. One big part of healing is actually also realizing that our own parents did the best they could with what they knew. We are so lucky to live in an age of information where we have access to so many studies in neuroscience, child development, and psychology that we can do better. But our parents were not that lucky. And I already discussed this exact topic last week when I did the summary of parenting from the inside out. So if you need specific steps on how to heal your triggers, I will leave a link up here. Another important point from the book is that we also need to pay close attention to our inner dialogue. Are you critical to yourself? What thoughts come up for you when you make mistakes or when you don't act the way you'd like to? This came up when I did the video summary of the gifts of imperfect parenting. We cannot give what we do not have. So if you are extremely critical to yourself or have perfectionism tendencies, there is a high likelihood that you will pass this down to your children. And you simply cannot be empathetic to other people when you are not empathetic to yourself first. You can't pour from an empty empathic cup. The second part is about our child's environment and how we can build a family environment where our children can thrive. I know a lot of parents will be very happy to hear this. It's not the family structure that matters, it's how we all get on. Research has shown that family structure has actually little effect on children's cognitive or emotional development. So it's not the divorce that matters, it's the quality of your co-parenting relationship. A large part of how children feel about themselves and how they interact with others will form in relationship to you and the small circle around you, whether it's extended family, school, friends, or nannies. So it does make sense to pay close attention to this system and do what we can to make it the best possible environment for us and our children. And of course, we can't always control everything, like the co-parenting relationship, for example. But we can control how we speak to our child about the other parent. So we should, as much as possible, only speak about the other parent positively. The other important aspect of our child's environment is about conflict and arguments. Arguments are inevitable in families, and in fact, they can be important as a healthy way to release tension and build closer relationships with each other. If all conflict is avoided, what tends to happen is that intimacy is avoided as well, and it can become lonely. So it's not about avoiding arguments, it's how you fight that matters. The ideal style of arguing is not about winning or being right. It's about understanding. Understanding and acknowledging our own feelings and also the other person's feelings. And the best framework for this, in my opinion, is called nonviolent communication. And I did the book summary a few weeks ago, so I will leave a link up here if you want to take a look. When you resolve conflict in this way, you bring more vulnerability, more empathy to your relationships. And the end result is that you foster more cooperation and collaboration, where it's no longer about winning or losing, but about everyone being on the same team. And you are also modeling this type of conflict resolution for your children. The third part is about feelings. Babies and children are their feelings. They haven't yet learned to observe their feelings, work out what they want, and then ask for it. And I will go as far as saying that a lot of adults still haven't learned those skills either. So, contrary to what the old style of parenting believed, responding to our children with compassion doesn't spoil them or perpetuate the unwanted behavior. It teaches them to understand their feelings. And having a healthier relationship with our feelings where we understand them, whatever they are, is the basis for good mental health. Studies have actually shown a link between being able to express our feelings and a stronger immune system. Because when feelings are not allowed or are being ignored, they don't actually disappear. They get bottled up where they fester and cause trouble later in life. Human beings have this innate need to be seen, heard, and understood, and it goes for both adults and children. So when children are soothed over and over again by their parents, whatever their feelings, they learn that emotions are okay and to accept them. Behavior is the only way kids can communicate what is going on for them. So your job is to decipher your child's behavior. What is the feeling behind the behavior? And once you identify that feeling, you need to get into the habit of validating that feeling and putting it into words for them. And once you get into the habit of validating feelings, you will realize that often it actually does the trick to avoid an entire conflict. And if it doesn't, it is still important to enforce the boundary. Kids absolutely need boundaries. But they will know that you accept and love them despite their feeling. It is the behavior you are not accepting, not the feeling. And children need at least one parent to be a container for their emotions. This means that you are alongside them and understand and accept what they feel, but you are not being overwhelmed by their emotions. And I want to add a personal point here that this is why it is so important to work as a team with your partner. Because there will be times when you won't be able to be the container for your child's emotions if you are being triggered for whatever reason. And what works for us is that we have a code word, and if one person says it, the other person takes over with our child immediately, no questions asked. The fourth part is about laying a foundation of good mental health for both you and your child. One of the most important indicators of good mental health is a strong bond between the parent and their child. This is what we call secure attachment. And in order to provide for our babies and children's needs, we also need our own needs to be met. So let's start with our own mental health. Becoming a parent can bring up a lot of emotions to the surface. It can be hormonal for women, where our emotions are heightened. It can also be that parenthood is bringing up a lot of emotions from your own childhood, or feeling lonely or feeling like you lost your old identity. But regardless of what the reason is, we all need support. Support from one another, support from extended family, or even joining a mother's group can be highly beneficial. We all need one person, at least, who we can vent to, who we can discuss any of our feelings without being judged. Another important point to make is that one big factor of sadness and overwhelm is believing that there is such a thing as a perfect parent, or believing that you can control what happens in pregnancy, childbirth, and parenting. What having 3 kids has really taught me is that we control a lot less than we think we do. And this illusion of control may affect the relationship you have with your child, because you may be parenting who you think or want your child to be, rather than the child who is in front of you in their own uniqueness. So the sooner you surrender to what is, rather than what you wish it was, the happier you will be. Now, let's discuss how we can deepen our bond with our children so we can foster good mental health for them. First, the author is telling us that we need to get into the habit of observing rather than judging, of seeing things from both our own perspective and our child's perspective. This is what she calls engaged observation. In this modern busy world, we are often in a hurry for them to reach all of their developmental milestones, for example, like sitting up, walking, talking. When we become engaged observers, we learn to live more in the present, and we learn to listen to them with the intent to understand rather than the intent to reply, as we often do as parents. We obviously cannot be in constant 24/7 face-to-face interaction with our children, but by injecting small doses of quality time here and there, observing, making eye-to-eye contact, and really listening to them, we can often avoid a lot of negative behaviors. The second thing we should do is that we should avoid rushing in to rescue them and focus on teaching them how to solve their own problems instead. And we can do this by using a collaborative approach to problem solving, where you define the problem and brainstorm solutions with them. And that way you teach them life skills that they can apply to any problems they encounter in the future. And my favorite framework for this is from the book The Explosive Child, so I will leave a link up here if you wanted to take a look. The third thing we should be doing is that we should ensure that our children have lots of time for free play. This is literally how our kids learn, and it teaches them so many skills like creativity, concentration, and problem solving. The fourth point is that our job is to model good behavior. And we need to model 4 skills for our kids to become socialized: flexibility, tolerance, problem solving, and empathy. And just like physical skills develop at different ages, children develop these behavioral skills at different ages from their peers too. And last but not least, we won't always be able to get it right. But what matters are not the mistakes, but that we take time to repair those mistakes with our children. And it's absolutely never too late to start, no matter how old your child is. That's it for today. Here is a summary of the book so you can take a screenshot on your phone. And if you have enjoyed this video, please leave me a like, and please leave me a comment and introduce yourself. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and keep growing!